Listening is a really important skill for any manager, leader and coach. It's used so much in any conversation you're having, but it's often actually an underused skill. A lot of people think listening, oh, I've done that my whole life, I can listen. But actually, most people pick very little up during the conversations they're having. So listening is something we need to work on as managers and leaders and coaches. So what we look at typically is 6 levels of listening. If we start at the first level, that's basically ignoring, which seems like a bit of an odd thing to say that ignoring is a listening skill, but think about it, in some situations it's actually really useful. You can say, well, that's not listening, but actually it's a skill in terms of recognizing that at times you need to ignore the sounds around you because you need to concentrate on the task at hand. And that can be in an open office environment where you're focusing on a task sitting in front of your computer and that other conversations are taking place around you. Or it could be something as serious as you're about to have an accident in a car and you have a family that is screaming of fear, but you need to concentrate on one simple thing, which is avoid an accident and a serious collision. In that case, ignoring are a really useful skill to have, so let's not dismiss it as a skill. The second level up is when you do pretending, and that's probably the least nice type of listening. That's why you're pretending to be listening to the other individual. And in that situation, that's where you're making sounds such as go on, but actually you're not focusing on what they're saying, you're not picking up the statements they're making. And if you tried it before in being receiving end of somebody pretending, you know what is happening. You see the eyes defocus and drift off. The next level up, that's the selective. That's when you're picking up certain parts of the conversations where you actually typically will have an agenda. There's something you are listening for, typically for your own purpose. So you're not listening to try and understand the other person, you're listening to pick up things you can use for your purpose, such as in a sales situation, you're looking for needs or problems that your product or service can solve. But if you're in a situation where you have a critical conversation as a manager with an employee, or if you're coaching somebody, what are you actually missing then? Are you selecting information and missing really important statements they're making that you could build upon that will give you more of an understanding where they're coming from? Right, that was the first 3 levels of listening. Now we come to the attentive level. That's the 4th one. Attentive means now you're 100% focused on what the other person is saying. You're actually picking up every word being said. They're actually still missing something. That's a great first start. But what's missing is what's between the line. And that's where we get up into a level called empathy. This is where you're really trying to understand the other individual. You're noticing things. You're matching what they're saying with their body language. You are listening for terms that they use, descriptions that they have of their situation, metaphors and pictures they paint of their world. And what you're trying to do and aiming to do is to really understand and empathize with them. And then we have one further level, and that's particularly in the manager and coach situation, where it's not just enough to sit and listen. And that 6th level we call constructive listening. And in the level of constructive listening, you're actually taking control of the conversation. You want to make sure that it's purposeful, effective. So when you leave, you have achieved something. The person in front of you have moved forward, have a deeper level of understanding, deeper and more self-awareness. And we have a definition of it, and that's the art of managing, steering the conversation without taking a major speaking part. So what it means is still that it's the other person doing all the speaking, and you need to use various tools to frame the conversation, making sure it's structured and it goes through stages to actually be outcome focused and the person leave in a better place than when they entered the conversation. So that's the 6 levels of listening.